What's up, guys, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. So this is going to be another installment of my programming series where I am going over my current training sessions and how I am programming them and all of the thought processes behind how I choose my exercises and things along those lines. So today we are going to be looking at my push A session. So I have done a push session before, but that was actually my push B session. So this will be push A. There are going to be a lot of things that you will notice that are similar between my last push session and this one. And that is because I really just kind of like to run a very standard push day template right now. I don't really have any prioritization that is going on within my push day training. Right now I'm really heavily focused on improving my legs, and so my entire training block is really focused around doing that. So this is just really a pretty average run-of-the-mill push day for me right now. So I am still starting this push session off with 2 sets of direct lat work like how I am in my other push session. But the difference between this push day and the other one is that I am using a overhead movement on this particular push session. And the reason for that is twofold. One, if I'm doing a row on the other day, I want to do something in the vertical plane on a different day just to have a variety of stimulus. But two, this exercise is also really good at getting my shoulder into an externally rotated position before I get into the pressing. And I have a lot of problems with my shoulder on my right hand side when it comes to external rotation, and it's kind of been that way for a very long time. And just over the years, having problems with external rotation mobility of my right shoulder has led to the point where I kind of have a constant case of bicep tendonitis in the front of my shoulder, where the long head of my bicep, the tendon attaches into the front of the shoulder. And so I have found by doing this movement over time that I'm gradually getting better at getting into that external rotation position. And it also makes my shoulders feel better and healthier when I get into my chest work that follows. So once I have my shoulders warmed up with the overhead pull downs, I like to get into a seated fly, very similar to my other push session. The reasoning for this is that I like to get muscle fully shortened at the beginning of the session while I can and while the muscle is fresh, and my pecs are no exception to that rule. So I also like to do a pec fly at the beginning because I find that it helps put blood in my pecs, which not only helps me feel the contraction of my pecs and my chest pressing a little better, but I also feel that it helps keep pressure off of that bicep tendonitis that I have. I find when I have some blood in my pecs, it's a lot easier for me to focus on using my pecs to press, and that makes it easier for me to not use my delt as much and just cause more aggravation on that bicep tendon. By this point, my shoulders and pecs are ready to go, so it's time to get into the fun stuff. So my main chest compound on this push day is this Incline LifeFitness press. The set that you guys are watching right now is actually the first time that I've ever hit 3 plates per side on this press. You can see by the progression that I had at the beginning that I really made a pretty aggressive weight jump this week, and I only lost 1 rep when I did that. And I think a lot of the reason why that happened is because I came off a deload, a 2-week deload nevertheless, the week before. And so I was feeling really good. And in a situation like that, I really like to take advantage of an instance like that and hit a weight that I've never touched before. So my goal right now with that top set is just to slowly micro load it and add fractional plates and just creep it up over time. My back off set here is a very high rep set. I hit 13.5 reps on this. My goal for now is to turn this into a 15 rep set, and then from there, I'll either add load or I may decide to get a little fucking crazy and work on some 20 rep pressing. After I finish off my 2 sets on the incline press, I'm actually completely done with chest work for this part of the push session. So I transition into my tricep work. My main tricep movement in this one is a Smith machine floor press, and I really like this exercise a lot. I've been using this exercise for a couple years now. I find that this just really destroys your triceps, and not only does it do that, this movement is regularly used in powerlifting programs to improve your ability to lock out a press. I mean, if you look at what this press is, it's obviously just a flat bench with reduced range of motion. And I find that that has a lot of carryover to helping me lock out my chest pressing compound movements. As I get better and stronger at this floor press, I get better and stronger at my chest presses. And I really think that a big reason for that is because my triceps are stronger, specifically at that lockout portion of the range of motion, which helps me finish off those really tough grinder reps. Just like my chest pressing, I'm doing 2 sets here. I'm doing something that is heavier, something on like the top end being around 10 reps, and then my second set, I want to be failing around the 15 rep range, and I may experiment with going up to some 20s on that as well. After I finish off the floor press, I like to just finish off the triceps while they're still warm, and I like to get into this overhead extension machine here. The reason why I like to do these overhead extension machines is because with a lot of the chest pressing and the tricep pressing and all of the rope extensions and everything, we're really focusing on the medial head of our triceps while doing that. And I think that the long head really gets ignored, and that long head can really only fully be hit when the shoulder is above the head in a flex position. So this is a exercise that I really like to use to hit the long head of the the tricep. And while I'm doing this exercise, I want you guys to focus on how long I'm spending in the stretch here. This is my last exercise for the triceps and really my last opportunity to tax them. And so I'm really trying to fully destroy them, especially from the fully lengthened position, because I've definitely smoked them through the mid-range with all of the chest and tricep pressing up until this point. After that, all of the chest and tricep work is done for this push session, and it's time to finish this one off with all of my delt work. So my rear delt exercise on this rotation is a cuffed cable rear delt fly. And this exercise looks like it's really, been MacGyvered and set up super scientifically, but really all that this is, in my opinion, is emulating a reverse pec deck. The reverse pec deck that I have in this gym does not have a good resistance profile, and I really do not like it at all. So this is kind of my way just to try and make something work with what I have available to me. I'm doing 2 working sets on this exercise. So in this video, my first set here, I'm doing a 3-count pause at peak contraction, and then you'll see on the second set that I'm not doing that pause at peak contraction, at least for not as long. This is kind of how I was running this exercise for a while, but I think going forward, I'm going to remove the pauses and just focus on having both sets with a traditional style rep tempo, and then just focus on doing 2 different rep ranges and taking partial reps all the way to the end. So you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here when I get into this second set, that once I get fatigued from my first set, it gets really, really hard to be able to use the same load and get roughly the same amount of reps on the second set. And I just think that's because the pauses are taking a little bit too much out of me. So you guys will kind of see here when I get to the end of this set that I'm just doing like traditional style reps. I'm pausing at the peak contraction, but it's nowhere near as long as I was at the beginning. But then when I kind of get to the end and where the range of motion ends and I can no longer hit a peak contraction, I just do partial reps until I can no longer initiate a contraction with the delt. So I think that's just what I'm going to do on both of these sets going forward. It just makes a little bit more sense in terms of progression. You'll start seeing here I can no longer get full range of motion, so I just start doing partials. This is probably what I'll be doing going forward on this exercise, is just 2 sets like this, full range of motion, and then partials till failure, just focused on 2 different rep ranges. The final exercise of the day is going to be this lying cuffed lateral raise, and obviously this is going to be the lateral raise variation that I use to tax my side delt. So I'm doing 3 sets here. On this first set, you guys are going to notice that I'm spending a lot of time at the top at the peak contraction, just to focus on really getting the muscle fully short. On the second set, I do a more traditional style rep tempo where I don't really emphasize one end of the range of motion. I just go through fluid reps. And then on the final set, I do an exaggerated pause in the stretch, like what I was doing with that overhead extension. So 3 total sets focused on emphasizing 3 different portions of the range of motion. 1 set focused on emphasizing the shortened range, 1 size focused on loading the mid-range, and then the third set emphasizes the fully stretched position. These lateral raises here are going to be one of the few exercises where I do more than 2 working sets on the same exercise. Actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure this is the only exercise that I do in all of my sessions where I do more than 2 working sets on the same exercise. I just find that lateral raises, you can spam the shit out of them, and it doesn't really seem to impact recovery too much to an extent. I have noticed that there's kind of a sweet spot with my lateral raise volume where it just allows me to progress my lifts a little bit easier. And when I go a little bit higher than that, I just find some inconsistencies with my progression. But for the most part, medial delts are one of those muscle groups that I just find you can spam the shit out of, and it doesn't really seem to impact your recovery a whole lot. When we take a look at the total volume of this training session, it looks as follows. I do 2 direct sets of lat work, 2 direct sets of chest work, 3 direct sets of tricep work, 2 direct sets of rear delt work, and then 3 direct sets of medial delt work. As always, that seems very low, but I think it's important that we understand that I am hitting all of these muscles again within 72 hours of doing this session. So it's just one of those things where you guys are only seeing one training session at a time and are not really taking into consideration the entire scope of the training program and how one session plays into the rest of them. So as always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section or in a DM, and I will get back to you guys as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate all the support on my content lately, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Take care of yourselves, guys.